and welcome to That Squirrel Speaks. Today is Friday, June 9th, and I'm Amy Beth, also known as the Fat Squirrel on Ravelry and the Fat SQRRL on Instagram. Thanks for visiting. So we'll be in a little bit of a different place probably for a while. My husband is currently between jobs, and you know, it's always a little bit weird to just talk into a camera like you're right here with me, but somehow when there's somebody in your sphere, even if they're like wearing headphones and like completely preoccupied doing something else, it's just a little bit extra weird. It's like just enough too much weirdness. So here we are. We're in the front of the house, so you might hear some more traffic sounds, but we'll go ahead and get to it. So this week's episode is gonna have like zero shenanigans. Last time I told you that I hurt my back, it still hurt. So even though the weather has been absolutely gorgeous, I am having to alternate like being up and about with like also being horizontal to like let my spine decompress maybe. I don't know. But I'm very thankful that it's working. So even though it is a bit obnoxious little back, I'm just gonna tell you it's a little bit obnoxious. I'm very thankful that you are doing great things all the other days of the year. But this 2 weeks has been a bit obnoxious, especially since it's like prime beautiful weather time here in Indianapolis in central Indiana. The weather has been gorgeous and I'm all like but I am getting better, so that's what really matters. So no shenanigans, right? So the only shenanigans I've really had are of the mind, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't even had that many of those. Right? My convalescence has included just a lot of me lying on my back with an iPad in front of my head watching Escape to the Country. Escape to the Country, if you don't know what it is, it's a British show about folks who are usually leaving a city, or at least they have a very distinct hierarchy of their like village, town, etc's, but they're leaving a more densely populated area. And sometimes they're moving to like just a village, sometimes they're moving to like the outskirts of a village, sometimes they're just moving to a smaller town, and sometimes they're moving to the actual like rural landscape. And it's all over the UK. They even have a few that I think I've seen in Northern Ireland. Primarily though, they are England, Wales, Scotland. So you get to just watch people buy houses in the Cotswolds, or just like look at houses in the Cotswolds. You get to look at too many real estate apps for the Yorkshire Dales. I'm just saying, maybe you get to do that. I don't know. So that's where I have been spending a lot of my mental energy over the last 2 weeks. But I will also say I have further recommendations of this book, The World According to Color, A Cultural History by James Fox. I did finish reading the chapter on black, and it was just delicious. I highly recommend this book. I shouldn't say that. I've read 2 chapters. But it's very enjoyable, and if you're not a big nonfiction reader, it is written in a very approachable manner. Because the chapters are separated just by color, like there was a chapter on blue, which I talked about a little while ago. I just finished one on black, there's one on white, etc., etc., etc. It's like really nice to just kind of take in chunks. You don't feel like you have to sit down and read the whole thing. Just like having multiple knitting projects going, right? Like sometimes you just want your mindless knitting. Sometimes you want your more involved, like color work happening. And so this is like a great nonfiction option to have just like on your side table if you're feeling the need for just a little bit of like, oh, I need to be fascinated by the world for a minute. Like, it's too much, it's too craggy, it's too treacherous out there. I need to find some more wonder to be appreciative of, but I don't have a ton of bandwidth to like learn about like quantum entanglement or something. This is, I think, a good option. So I really am enjoying it. It's true. I've been doing a lot of fantasy clothes sewing, but I haven't done any actual clothes sewing. I talked about a little bit, well, I didn't talk about it. I told you that I finished my quilt top that I was working on a while ago. Let me see. Oh, sorry, it's still a little twingy. Certain positions. It's one of those things that like, it's such a mystery, this weird back, right? Like, so it does do the twingy thing where you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely not what I should be doing. But the other fun thing it does is it lets you sit in the position for a while and it doesn't tell you it's going to be terrible when you decide to move, but then it is. So anyway, I have sort of finished my Maggie Pearl quilt top. So this is a pattern by Penelope Handmade. It's available, it's a free pattern through her website. It's available in a throw size, which is 64 by 70, or a bed size, which is 80 by 84. And so I have finished the bed size, but I have a queen size bed and I do think I want it to be just a little bit bigger. I don't love it when a quilt just kind of sits on top of the bed and doesn't have overhang, because I don't use like a coverlet or something, you know, underneath of it. And so I have finished the Maggie Pearl portion and I do really like it. I've used just like a very scrappy approach. I've tried to kind of stay, well, I shouldn't say, I don't know, like I had a color story in my brain and it was sort of like this, is it Heather Ross? That had just recently been, not recently, it's been out for a while. But it had, I really love this strange, this is not one of the Heather Rosses, but I love this strange, like sort of tobacco-y color with pink. I really love that combination. I think it's just not something I'm used to seeing, and so I really love it. So I kind of started to, you know, just wanted to stay with like these like fun springy greens. Like she has this great print with the frogs, but also like this fun tobacco pink combination. And then I just threw in some yellows. I mean, I basically just, it's a kitchen sinker, right? Like in my head, the colors sort of made sense together, but they're definitely not from one collection or anything like that. So you have the great little matryoshkas, which I did some project bags with. But I just wanted like a nice variety. And so I think I ended up with, I have no idea. I think I ended up with like 12 different combinations of fabrics that are throughout. And I'll put a picture of the quilt top in here, if I don't forget. So yeah, so most of them are like a very light with the mid-tone, but then I have a few blocks that you saw that I would not normally put this in because my brain would be like, no, they all need to be whites. But I decided that I would try to like make it a little spicier here and there by throwing in, I don't know, sometimes quilts just look good when they have a little bit of like just something that's a little bit off the primary color theme or like value combination. So I'm hoping that works, but you know, if it doesn't, it's okay. But anyway, so ultimately I think what I'm going to do now, of course, if I had thought about it while I was putting it together, I could have just added in some more regular blocks, right? And made it like a row wider, a row taller, something like that. I do think it would have been just maybe a little bit too big if I had done that. But I'm neither here nor there. At this point, I think what I've decided to do, my mom mentioned putting a border on it, which is what I'm essentially going to do, but I think I'm going to make it like a scrappy border. I don't want just like a solid frame around it. I think what I've decided to do is maybe do like a couple. So these finished squares I think are 2 inches. Yeah, they're 2.5 inches. So I think what I might do is like 2-inch strips on the outside edge, like as a border, a picture frame around it, and maybe do like a white one that's scrappy whites or very scrappy lights, and then a scrappy like other tones, darker tones, and then maybe do like another white one. I don't know, I haven't decided yet. That's originally I thought, well, maybe I'll do just like a 4-patch around the edge, but I think I would like something that is different than the feel of the middle of the quilt, but still I don't know, for some reason solid borders just look more like fancy, and I do want it to have that like scrappy, kitcheny kind of feel to it. I want it to be like kitchen curtains for your bed. Your Cotswolds country kitchen curtains. Just saying. So I think that's what I might do, unless you have a better idea. I will take notes on this one. So yeah, I don't know. That's where I'm kind of leaning, and I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it 2 inches or if it should be a slightly different width to again make it feel different than the interior of the quilt. Make it feel like a supplement to the interior of the quilt. So I thought maybe even of doing like skinnier strips, like a finished 1 inch or something like that. I think I would have to make it either 1 inch or 2 inch. Like it would either have to be like, oh, that's completely different than the size of those squares, or it's the same as the size of those squares. Do you know what I mean? Like I think if I do like 1.5 inches, it's going to just be a little bit like confusing visually. I like how I'm like concerned about it being confusing visually. It's very higgledy-piggledy. So anyway, so that is my quilt that I am working on. Huzzah! And then what else? Oh, I have picked up some stitcheries because it feels like summer is always such a good time to work on stitcheries. So I have, did I not bring up? Oh, I didn't. I apologize. I'll tell you next time when I have it finished, because I will have it finished next time. I bought this I bought this kit a while back, and it is a kit that is produced in, well, it's produced for the Japanese market. The instructions are in Japanese, but I had done another one that I had purchased here locally at the French Seam, which is like a great garment / quilting fabric shop on the northeast edge of Indianapolis. And so I purchased one. There's like 4 of them that are like seasonal, and I had purchased the like springy one. And then I just really loved it so much, I decided I would purchase the fall one as well. So I will tell you next time the name of the quilt and the design, or excuse me, the embroidery and the designer. Silliness. But isn't it fun with the little bird? My embroidery skills are not the best. Like I really still struggle with satin stitch. I'm always, again, you can see kind of here on these little berries, I ended up outlining them, which is definitely not what is instructed to do. Whoopsie, sorry. But they just looked too like wonky with my somewhat not great satin stitching. But I still really like it. And so all I have left to do is the white, or the cream color is all of the like satin stitch to bring, or not satin stitch, stem stitch to be the stems of all the flowers. So yay! Oh, look at how cute this little dragonfly is. His French knot eyeballs are a little bit wonky, but you know, such is life. But isn't the bird cute? So sweet. And then I also picked up, I bought this Plum Street Samplers. This is Autumn Fracture. So it's a counted cross stitch. And I really love the look of cross stitch, but I am not yet to the place of really, I shouldn't say that. I do think I enjoy it, but my eyes are such that I have to use the magnifier light. And so it feels sort of like I can't just pick it up and do a little bit of it at a time. I mean, there's always a bit of a barrier when you're doing counted cross stitch, because you have to, it's a counted pattern. It's not like a knitting pattern where you're, oh, I'm just going to knit stockinette for 4 inches. So, but this one does have like this little repeating hem border on it, which again, I theoretically could just pick up and stitch on, but my eyes are just not good enough, or I haven't found the right combination of lighting, so that I can do it comfortably. I think part of it is because I'm inexperienced with, this is knit on, this is stitched on 36 count linen, right? I think I did what was suggested, with 1 strand of floss. And maybe like as I do more cross stitch, I will be able to see, like to intuit where the stitches are better than I am now. Like right now, the way I am, like I can easily go over one thread instead of two and not notice it. Unless I am using either magnification, unless I'm using magnification, quite frankly. So I do enjoy doing it. I really love the finished product, but I don't enjoy the fact that I have to like have gear to do it. And so I do struggle with that. Although now I'm sitting here in more natural light, and maybe that's what I need to try doing, is sitting in natural light to do it, because maybe the natural light has better shadow so that you can see the depressions between the lines of linen better. So anyway, so I just need to experiment with it a bit more, I think, to try to find what really works for me. I do have bifocals, but yeah, they're just not enough in my regular, like, again, living room lighting situation. My living room is not particularly bright and airy. We have a darker paint. It's more of it's a snug vibe versus an orangery vibe. Oh my gosh. I almost said I would murder for an orangery. I would not murder for an orangery, but boy, I could just do my cross stitch all the time in there. It's so bright. But anyway, so yeah, I have to figure that out. Have you found something that works for you particularly well? I know a lot of folks say that they just need the right amount of light to do the stitching, and then they don't really need the magnification. So maybe that's what I need to try to work on, and see if that will work better for me. But so that's what I'm doing in stitching. And then what else? Spinning, I actually have finished. Oh, so this is, I'm not using the floss that's suggested in the Plum Street sampler, not because I don't like it, because I really do, but I had purchased this stinking charming box of floss. It's Valdani's 3-strand cotton floss, which I had not used before. I am liking it. I find that a lot of times with, I shouldn't say that a lot of times. I find with sometimes the 6-strand flosses, they want to like tangle up on me quite a bit, and I get frustrated with them, even though I'm using a smaller length. I'm being good. The temptation, of course, is always to use the longest length possible, right? Because then you don't have to end it as often, but it's a problem. It causes like more drag, and it causes more abrasion on the floss, and it does tangle up a lot more. So I have learned my lesson. Thank you, Tula Pink, and your English paper piecing videos, that they will always make more thread, and that to enjoy the process, it's okay if I have to waste those little tiny tails. But sometimes with the floss that is in, multiple, like DMC, for example, I find that it can be frustrating to me because it does seem like it wants to kink up more. I don't know if that's just my own imagination, or my thought is maybe because it is plied that they have to put a little bit of twist in it to ply it, or something is happening there. I don't know. But all that's to say, it doesn't seem to be doing the twisty up thing, which I really appreciate, even though it is quite dear to purchase. But anyway, this is 3-strand cotton floss, Folk Art Fusion collection from Michelle May of the Raspberry Rabbits. And so I'm just going to use these colors, and they seem very close in spirit to these. And also, it's like a cardboard box, dudes. It's like not fancy at all. And somehow the fact that these all fit in here so snugly gives me great joy. And the fact that not only are they a little doodad, but like they have the little tiny label on them. Why is that so charming to me? I don't know. But somehow it is. Okay, the camera does it. Oh, see, as soon as I give up, the camera's like, aha! I'll trick it. No, it's not gonna work now. I ruined it. But anyway, so that's what I'm working on in terms of stitching. And then I actually finished. What, you say? I know. I actually finished some hand spinning. So this is, I am a part of the Knit Spin Farm bat collectors. Maybe not bat spinners. I need to be a bat spinner, not just a bat collector. But anyway, this is the November Bat Club from Knit Spin Farm. It's called North Side of the Log. It's 50% Corriedale, 50% Polworth. And I just spun it sort of like semi-woolen. My default is sort of like a supported long draw-ish. But, you know, quite frankly, I'm higgledy-piggledy all around. But I'm very pleased with it. It's 400 yards, which is actually pretty good yardage for me. I'm usually like a DK spinner. So this one is, I would say, maybe sport-ish. Doesn't it look great? So yay! So I finished that, and then on that wheel, I do have some Knit Spin Farm bats on my e-spinner. I spun that on a Ladybug. But so then when I finished that, I purchased this. This is Corriedale Lamb. I purchased this at the Greencastle Fiber event, formerly known as the Wool event. Greencastle Fiber Show. Whatever. How fun is this? It's called Tree Frog. It's got these fun black neps in it. This like bizarre aqua color, which I don't even like. Normally I'm not interested, but lately I'm like, okay. But also it's like this fun amount of green in it. And so I have an 8-ounce ball of that to spin. And I put that on the Ladybug. It's very enjoyable. I mean, come on. So enjoyable. And then, knitting-wise, I finished a hand-spun Musselburgh. So this will go in the donation pile, but I have this hand-spun that I had made, I believe, oh, I don't even know. But it was like from a Batlings or something like that combination. I want to say that it was from Spun Right Round, but I might be a liar. I probably am. So here she is. So this is the Musselburgh by Isolde Teague, and I think it turned out super cute. I was worried. I've never done one in like a heavier than fingering weight yarn, but I think it turned out really well. It's super cute, right? So you can either wear it like this, or you can cuff it and wear it more like a toque. You Canadians, you do say it in different ways, I promise. Anyway, it's super warm and it'll be great. It'll be great for very cold winters. And I think it turned out really cute. And it has like some fun sparkle in it as well. The only thing I did differently is that I think I mentioned last time that I did put a purl row when I was halfway through. So the pattern does tell you the length that is suggested. And I did put a purl row in there just to help it fold a little bit more easily. And that's not at all necessary. That's really just for my own brain. So, there's that. And then I finished my take on the Rift tee. I'll put a picture in here. I won't do a video because, again, I'm a little bit wonky still, but I will put a picture in here. Right, isn't it super cute? So this is a pattern, it's based on Jacqueline Cieslak's Rift tee, which I believe is written for sport. I believe so. My yarns were like probably sport and DK. So like the wheaty color cotton, I think is listed as a DK. And I think the like bright coral, hot coral is also listed as a DK, but I would consider it more of a sport weight yarn. I had 3 skeins of the coral and 4 of the wheat. This is Barocco Gaia. And then this is not edamame, but it's a Lana Grossa. It's a chainette that is wool, alpaca, and cotton, I think. So my hope was that, lots of times when you get like a standard plied cotton yarn, and this also is like 50% cotton. It's got a portion of 50% maybe recycled polyester. But anyway, so lots of times when you get like a traditionally plied cotton, it can feel ropey. Not all the time. Not all the time. But often they can feel a little bit ropey. And they just want to be a little bit rigid, and they tend to also be heavy for the yardage. So my thought was supplementing with this chainette that was has much more yardage to the ounce, but also again has a different ply construction. This is like a chainette, as I said, versus a traditional multi-ply yarn. That it would help kind of like offset that ropiness of the cotton, or what I sometimes perceive as ropiness. Now, I wouldn't say this one is particularly like aggressive. It's not like a dish yarn, like dishy or something, but it's still, a little something happening. So yeah, that was my hope, that it would help. And I do think it worked. I think it has pretty good drape. Now, part of that is because I worked it at a fairly loose gauge. But I do think it helped to add in that lighter weight chainette yarn, the drape and the weight of the overall garment. Because especially on a person my size, I think the finished size on this is something like 56, 50, I don't know, something in that neighborhood. Well, again, like let's just think about it in terms of like the number of skeins. If this had been all in the cotton, I would have had, 600 grams of that. Actually more than that, because it's less yardage in a ball. Probably about 600 altogether. And so it would have been a heavier garment. So it's gonna it's going to be weighed down. And again, one of the principles, not aspects. One of the aspects, characteristics of cotton is that it does not have that spring that wool does. It doesn't want to spring. It doesn't have memory. It doesn't want to like just automatically go back to its non-stretched out state. It likes to just stretch out and just be super relaxed, which is fine. But sometimes in a garment for me, this one is helpful because it's short sleeved. It's sort of cropped-ish. But still, like it can make the fabric just stretch out more than I want it to. It can make it not anchor onto my body. Like it wants to like feel like it's pulling off my shoulders. And so then you're like constantly like fiddling with it, which is annoying. I have not worn this one for a full day yet, so I will get back with you to see, to just kind of communicate how that worked out. It's one of the reasons I often don't like loosely knit garments, is because they do kind of feel like they're that on me. Clearly, that's a characteristic. But I am actually quite pleased with how it turned out. Another thing that I was a little concerned about is that there's not finishing on the neck edge. And, well, I was just concerned about that. There you go. There's nothing to like kind of like pull it in or, and again, or even just to finish the like aesthetic of it. Like, is it going to look unfinished? Is it going to look raw? But I actually do like the way it turned out. I could always go back and crochet around the edge if I needed, if it does stretch out. But I think it's firm enough that it's going to be okay. What else? Oh, another thing that really was helpful. This sweater, which I'm thankful for, has short rows at the shoulder so that it's higher here than it is at your shoulder cap, which, hello, that's how your body works. Which would have, but it uses German short rows, which I haven't quite gotten the hang of doing in a stripe. And so I did just do them solid. And I think that worked out fine with the random striping that I used. I think if it had been a very regular stripe, it would not have worked as easily as it did with using the more random stripe pattern. So that was a good thing. I was pleased with that. As I mentioned last time, I did have to do more stitches in the twisted rib cuffs and the waistband than she did, but that was just, again, my own gauge issue. I think that's all. I did do some short rows. I did not do as many as were suggested in the pattern, quite frankly, because I just forgot to do them. But it worked out fine. So you can see the stripe. Yep, see, there you go. That's very visible in that wheat one. But when it's on my body, I don't think you can tell. Even when I kind of turn to the side, my arm covers it because I have a wider arm. Thanks, wide arms. And you really don't see that kind of like wonkiness there, that fisheye sort of thing. I didn't just do it there. It's just most noticeable there. I also did it, oh, you can see right underneath of it in this orangey stripe. But yeah, so I probably should have done a few more short rows, but I'm overall quite pleased with how it turned out. I don't think it looks like particularly, because again, the hem is split. So it's a high-low hem. The hem is actually longer in the back, just like by an inch or so. So like, for example, not even an inch, 3/4 of an inch, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's supposed to be an inch and I did it differently. But anyway, so that helps too. Like it makes it look like, oh, okay, if the front is a little bit higher, it doesn't look, it looks more intentional. How about that? It looks more intentional. But either way, I don't actually think it looks particularly higher. And part of that is I think because it does have a lot of positive ease, it's got room to kind of like drape over the additional adipose in my chest. I'm trying to think if I did anything else differently. I did not, the pattern I think is written either as like a cap sleeve. I could not think of that word. It's written as a cap sleeve or a long sleeve, and I just, you know, did the pickup I would normally do for the sleeve and just knit it straight for that many inches. Quite frankly, that's exactly how many inches I did it for. So I didn't do any shaping or anything like that. Yeah. Somebody asked in the comments of a post I made whether I made it longer. I couldn't tell you right now. I made it so that it was the length I wanted it. So I'm not even sure what measurement Jacqueline uses. But I just made it the measurement I like. And so that's the easiest modification to make on a pattern. And if you're not sure and you don't have a cropped sweater, just take a t-shirt that you have that fits similarly, you know, that's kind of like a looser, it's going to fit like with a similar amount of ease, and just pin it up to see like, oh, do I like this length? Do I not like, you know, like what length really works for me? You might start pinning it. Again, you want to make sure that the sleeve cap fits somewhat similarly, but try it on, you know, with it pinned to the length that's written in the pattern, see if you like it, and then you can just play with it from there. So that's all my finished knitting. Again, I have about this much left of each one. And then I have cast on. I cast on a recalibrate. What? Are you serious? Yes, of course I did. Recalibrate is by Shayna Lyons Designs. I have knit 2 other ones in the past. Of course, I stopped in the middle of the row because I don't do this podcasting thing professionally or anything. But I purchased this yarn at the Hoosier Hill Fibers Festival. This is a dyer that is new to me. She's Ash and Bumble. This is their merino fingering. They are in Indianapolis. 100% superwash merino, 438 yards. Okay, so this is like the skinnier wool to dye for base. And I bought both the Celadon color and, oh, that's the Celadon wrapper. Celadon and Oak Moss. So, I don't know, I just really, really dug these colors so much. And I knew that I had some Quince & Company Finch that I had over dyed, and I think I'm going to use that for the like quote unquote accent color on the recalibrate. I think that's going to be super fun to have a more tonal version. I think that'll be very wearable for me. I'm hoping. And even if it's not, it's just stinking enjoyable to knit. I tell you what. So I am knitting mine at a slightly tighter gauge than is written for the pattern. Again, it's just a matter of personal preference. But so here's like my back or front, depending on what we're doing here. Panel. I knit this in the celadon because I bought 2 skeins of the celadon and 1 of the oak moss. And then that's how the stripe is turning out, which I'm very pleased with. Yeah. And so then that forestier green will go like, is the accent color like underneath the arm. And someplace else. I don't remember. I might have also purchased Leading Man Fiber Arts yarn to make her shoulder season. And by might, I mean I definitely did. But they are sending it to me because they didn't have quite enough in their booth. So I really did not want to buy yarn, but clearly then I did. But somehow it's okay if you immediately cast it on. Am I right? Immediately cast it on doesn't count. So anyway, I'm very excited about that. And this, if you have not made a recalibrate, they are super enjoyable to knit on. It's like knitting a shawl, but you get a sweater out of it. Does that sound weird? Perhaps. Oh, did I mention? I'm knitting this on US 1.5s, and it is a tighter gauge. I think 20% tighter than 17% tighter than the pattern is written for. But anyway, you knit the front panel, you knit the back panel, and then you knit the sides. Like you pick up along the edge of them, you knit the sides out. But it just feels like you're knitting a shawl. And so sometimes, like, I actually just really enjoy the rhythm of knitting a shawl. I love the size of the needle. I love the weight of the yarn. It's garter stitch. Super enjoyable. So your rows are never that long because you're not knitting the circumference of the sweater. You're knitting the front to the back, back to the front. I guess it depends on your body size. If you have a small body circumference, then that probably is not that much of a deal to you. But so here is Shannon and hers. It's just very enjoyable to knit. I mean, what else can I say? And so I'm hoping the shoulder season is similarly, it's differently, it's constructed differently. And it's only going to be, it's like one primary color with like a little bit of a shoulder color accent. So again, I find that I love knitting like the bigger contrasts and the more fun color combinations, but I don't wear them as often, I think. So it's like that balance of like, I want to knit the fun thing because it's fun to knit and I am a process knitter. But trying to balance that with like, okay, well, I either need to knit the fun thing to just give away or to do something else with. And then also, well, whatever. I either need to do that or I need to think about like, okay, can there be a fun construction that I can work on that I still make out of like a semi-solid that is a little, like that's interesting to me to work on, but is maybe not like as busy. So I feel like I can wear it more easily. And speaking of that, here's the opposite. Oh, do as I think, not as I do, or whatever. So I've been wanting to knit, because again, it's fun. I've been wanting to knit, Jacqueline Cieslak has both the Moon Crush tank and then the Moon Crush pullover. The Moon Crush tank is what I originally wanted to knit, but it has a very deep arm size, which again, you can work on that. You can tighten it up. You can make it, knit it so you have a smaller armhole opening, but also brain. Sometimes just like I don't think I've ever done intarsia. I mean, if I have, it's been very minimal. I've definitely never done intarsia for like a garment. And this one is intarsia. And so I thought, maybe I don't need to like try to modify a pattern wildly and do a new technique. So I decided to do the pullover. Now I am going to make it a short sleeve instead of a long sleeve, but that doesn't count. That doesn't count as modifications. How cute is that? So I think I should have picked slightly lower contrast yarns, but whatever, my brain sometimes just doesn't do things well. I mean, what can you say, right? I'm trying to... Ow. Don't put your embroidery in your knitting bag, lady. Anyway, I bought this yarn. This is Plymouth Yarns Clio. It's 100% mercerized Pima cotton by Plymouth Yarns. I already said that. It is chainette, 50 grams to 125 yards. Their suggested gauge is 22 stitches to 4 inches, which is what I am doing. Miraculously. I never do what I'm told. So I'm using this gold color and this sort of taupe, darker taupe. And then this grayy greenish color. So I thought I was doing good by getting 2 neutrals, but I was like, ooh, when it got here, I was like, maybe that gold is a little bit César for like a giant stripe down the middle, but whatever, I'm just gonna experiment. I could always, if I wanted to, over dye it with like just like a tea dye level of dye just to kind of tone it down, but I hope I don't want to do that. I hope I like it as it is. But anyway, I've just started. I am just on the ribbing. This looks so tiny because it's 1 by 1, but this is the ribbing for the back, and I have intarsia ribbing. So this is the back side. It's really not complicated. It's not like I'm knitting a sweater with like tiny houses and whoosits all over it. It's this color blocking thing. So it's if you're gonna do intarsia for the first time, this is a great way to do it because you only have to do a couple color changes. I don't even know if you have to do ever 3 at a time. Yeah, I guess you do have to do 3 colors, 2 changes at a time. But yeah, so isn't it super cute? There is also a 2-color version. There is a cropped version and a full length version. Her cropped version is a 9-inch from the underarm to the hem, and the full length version is 15 inches from the underarm to the hem. And I'll probably do, I believe, slightly more than 9 inches, but definitely not 15. And what else? I know on the Rift Tee, I didn't mention this because I didn't think about it. On the Rift Tee, you can either do the V-neck, which I have done here for the front, or you can just do like the boat neck if you prefer. She's got written directions for both. I did want the V-neck, clearly, because that's what I did. But the schematic doesn't show the deeper neck, but I'm sure it's probably just for simplicity of the schematic. What else do I need to tell you? It's up to a 68-inch circumference. That's the finished circumference. It should fit with 4 to 6 inches of positive ease. What else? It is written to 22 stitches to 4 inches. My row gauge is wildly off, so I probably will, well, I definitely will need to make some changes. After I get some of the stockinette finished, I'll need to make some changes to the charts, figuring out exactly that, because my row gauge is much, like my stitches are taller than her stitches. So actually it might work out that I'll just end up knitting the 9-inch and it'll work out just fine. But anyway, I'll need to look at that before I get too far into it. But first I'm knitting the back. I do that when it's a pieced sweater. I often do the back first, because it just is easier to fudge. Like if I knit the back and I'm like, oh, this is like a smidge too small, then you can just make like little wings on the front to give yourself a little bit extra width. Or again, like it gives you an idea of like how many, if you need to add a lot of short rows in to cover your bust, or whatever you need to do. So it's just, it's easier. It's also easier if you mess up your technique or something, or like it looks a little sloppy or something. It's nicer if it's in the back than in the front. It is pieced Sweater, again, because it's in Tarja, like knitting in Tarja in the round is essentially knitting it flat. Like you still have to knit in purl, and it would just be more complicated to write the pattern that way. That's all I need to tell you. I did buy one yarn that I have not cast on yet, and that is, this is a new to me dyer. What is she? Her tag is Hinkston Handmade. It is a self-striping sport, so it's 80 superwash merino, 20 nylon. And this is her colorway Drunken Fairy Mischief. And did I entirely buy it because that logo is so stinking cute? No, but it certainly didn't hurt anything. She's a really fun color sense. Again, I love this like scummy green with a mauviness. I don't know why do I even pretend like I know how a camera works? No, it still sees my face, so it's like, no, really, we love it. There we go. I just have to hide my face. I mean, look at how cute that stinking logo is, y'all. And again, it's a really fun color combination. I realized after I got home, I was like, oh, I should have bought the fingering weight, because then this would be like the cutest muscle bra, right? But whatever, it'll be very cute socks as well, or a muscle bra. But I don't know I don't know. I cast on a sport weight one with some self-striping from Nomadic, which I love the yarn, and I've knit socks with it before, so it's not the yarn. But I just, for some reason, didn't love it in the hat for some reason. I don't know, maybe I was knitting it too tightly or too firmly. But isn't that good? That's a good colorway. So yes, that is all we have to talk about. Yeah. Okay, so no shop updates in the immediate future. There might be one before I go to SSK if I need gas money. Just honesty, people. But there probably will not be one until after the Super Summer Knit Together hosted by the Knit Girls in Nashville, Tennessee, which is happening mid-July-ish, mid to late July. So if you're going, I will see you there. If you're going to go to the market, I will see you there. But otherwise, I'll probably have the first shop update at August 1st. And let me tell you, it's got really cute fabrics. I'm not even going to lie. I'm very excited about all of them. You can ask the patrons of the podcast. I did an unboxing of the fabrics I'm using for SSK, and there were many squeeze and loves. So anyway, so that'll be August 1st. I'll do like a preview in my late July episode. Otherwise, I'll see you in a few weeks. Bye.